Mm. Good morning and welcome back to United TV. Late last night, David Ornstein dropped the news that Pep Guardiola is going to quit Manchester City. Manchester United fans, lots of posts, lots of streams about Elliot Anderson at the same time. Does this actually help Manchester United at all? Or is this going to make no difference whatsoever regarding Manchester United trying to get Anderson? I think one of the things for Manchester United is long-term strategy as well. There's no doubt that Pep Guardiola has been one of the more successful managers. And I think a lot of people would say Premier League era, Pep Guardiola is probably the second best manager we've seen in the league after Alex Ferguson. And 10 years at City, roughly thereabouts, unfortunately, he's had a lot of success with City, but now he's going to be leaving. I think for people that remember Manchester City before Pep, Man City was still winning titles before Pep moved there, but they weren't as clinical, they weren't as effective. I think they're going to be still a difficult team, but it's something to consider that things are changing. And will Manchester United regret not getting an elite manager, or will Carrick be able to? We have seen this season that Michael Carrick did beat Pep Guardiola, did beat also Arteta. So we could be seeing Arsenal champions very soon, and we could be seeing a completely different landscape at the top of the Premier League. If you go back to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer being manager of Manchester United, that was against Pep and Klopp. Now we got Arteta, Maresca. Is it going to be slightly easier? I would suggest that Man City will still spend crazy money, but we'll have to see what happens with that one. I'll jump into your questions in a moment. If you are able to share the live stream, please do that. Please don't forget to click the like on the video as well. And if you have any questions, I'll try and get through those as soon as I've just gone through the main points of the story. But this happened pretty quickly, so this has been linked. Actually, Maresca was linked back in January, I believe. So it's been quite a long time coming. And I think as soon as he got sacked from Chelsea, a lot of people thought Maresca was going to be instantly replacing Pep. Is this a good appointment? Is probably the question. It's really difficult to consider. To be honest, it is really difficult to predict what's going to happen at Manchester City. Maresca at Chelsea, I would say like Chelsea have dropped like a stone since Maresca left, and Maresca, despite Chelsea's problems, was probably the best manager they've had for a little while. And you can see the difference as soon as he's left Chelsea. Chelsea look a complete shambles. So I think he did a decent job at Chelsea. Chelsea's got some other issues, but how he's going to get on at City is probably. I'd imagine at the start you'd expect that results would be decent. But I think he's a good manager as well. So morning, Harrod says, love the fact that Pep maybe our red skies ahead. Maybe say Maresca had massive problems with the clueless leadership at Chelsea. He will do well at City. It might be that City, but I think City have got some. Maybe City's got some issues. The one thing I would say is just before we go into like, the Manchester United angle for this one, do you think there's anything in like Pep Guardiola when he left Barcelona? He left before there was like a few things coming out. Is Pep Guardiola jumping ship because I don't know what the reasons. Is it because something bad's going to happen to City? People are talking about charges. People are talking about what's going to happen to like will these get resolved? Will there be a points deduction? All these kind of things. Is Pep leaving? Is it more of a fact that not necessarily Pep Guardiola as how good a manager he is? Is it more a question of what's the reason why Pep's suddenly leaving at this point in time? I thought Pep was going to try and go out on top, and he's got the squad to definitely challenge for the Premier League next season. You could argue that he might actually have a better squad next season than he had to start this season with Semenyo, Mark Gahey, and potentially strengthening in the summer. So is it unusual timing? So for me, it's a little bit unusual timing. I thought that I honestly thought Pep was going to do exactly what Alex Ferguson did. I thought he might lose the title this year and then come back with a big summer transfer window and then try and win the title another year. So that was kind of what I thought regarding this one. I don't know if people have the same view, but I thought this was going to be, yeah, suddenly we're going to see something happen regarding the 115 charges. I don't know if that's the case. If it is the case, then at least they get that resolved. If it's not, then so Ornstein has put something out about the 115 charges. Do you know what it is, Tony? I haven't seen that this morning. So if you know what that is, or you could summarize it for people that are watching, that'd be quite handy. But you do get the feeling that my thoughts are that it's going to be maybe there's going to be something happening regarding that. That it wouldn't be the first time. I think I can't remember the scandal at Barcelona, but there was definitely a few tax issues with certain player salaries and things that have been discussed. And we know that the charges regarding what's happened at Manchester City, it could be like something similar to that, possibly. Yanni says, I think Pep is burned out and needs a break. It could be something as simple as that, couldn't it? As well, that I think Pep's looked like he's been under stress quite a lot, and maybe it's time for a break. I mean, this is probably the longest time he's been manager at a club, and it could be as simple as that, Yarley. I'm hoping it's something to do with the charges, and I'm hoping that finally they actually look at this and sort this out as well. Okay, no worries, Tony. But I think it's something that Man United fans are probably looking and thinking, hopefully, yeah. Um, so this feels like when Klopp left as Omar. Yeah, a few people have been talking about this and saying that when Manchester United are looking at Michael Carrick as an example, and they're looking at right, who should we put in charge? Then the football landscape is going to change. We're going to move from. I think when Pep and Klopp were right at the top, it felt like we had two of the better managers in Europe at the top of the Premier League, and the amount of points these two were accumulating for a couple of seasons was astronomical. And it feels a bit like if Manchester United get this appointment right, I'm not saying we're in a title race. I'm just saying we're closer than we have been. And it feels a little bit like you've got to think long-term planning here. Like, where do you go with this one? But I admit, I do think it feels. I think with Klopp, he left the team in a good place. Slot was able to come in and instantly pretty much carry it over. And we have seen since then that I think the more that Slot changes the team, the worse it gets for Liverpool. So I hope that keeps carrying on. But to go like back to Manchester United, then and I think Jay put a question. This is a question just before I clicked live, and the question was going to be, what would be your main targets and for the summer? And I think the main targets have got to be Elliot Anderson still. There was a lot being said on the weekend about Anderson's performance. He was, you could argue he was man of the match, played really well, and I think he was a now, the more you see out of Anderson, the more you realise that he is an effective player. He's a good player. He could potentially be world class. He looks like he's got all the attributes to drop into any midfield at the moment. Defensive work's really good. We saw on the weekend that he can pick out passes. He's got a lot more about his game, I think, than a lot of people realised a year ago. And he's got to be the main target. The question is going to be like, does Pep leaving actually help Manchester United in any way? And you could argue that if it could be a positive or a negative. Like there are some players, and we've said this in the past, that if Jack Grealish, when he went to Manchester City, we were sat here saying it might not be ideal. Like it might not be the best move for him because he might not be able to play the same way. We have seen things change a little bit. Cherky is able to do what he's doing, and maybe we're going to see something different happen now. But it's going to be a different era, isn't it? So it's going to be a bit of a tricky one to guess. Alex Ferguson jumping straight in. Also, big up to Kazi in the chat. Um, so Klopp looked burnt out. And Pep, I think, yeah, Klopp's team and the way he's playing, it looked like he was burnt out. It looked like that was happening as well. Um, so terminate Carrick's contract and go and get Pep, says Alex Ferguson. Wow. Can you imagine, like, just to take put that out there for a second, can you imagine the drama that would happen after? I think, as far as I know, Carrick signed his contract, doesn't he? So that's here we go, isn't it? As far as I know, I'm not sure if it's been officially announced, but Carrick's a done deal. If you did that and then got Pep, wow, I don't know what fans would. I think some fans would be excited. Some fans would be thinking, "What is going on?" Um, yeah, I don't know about that one. Omar says, hopefully we get Anderson, but guys, we also need a six. I think Anderson can do that work as well. If you look at Anderson, he wins the ball back more than anybody. He's decent in duels, and I think he does protect the back four very well. So I think Anderson can do that job. But I think when we're looking at, say, like if people think of a too many, or maybe people are thinking of like get someone that's like a Makaleli or a Kante in the modern game. I think Anderson could do that role. And I think it would be very interesting to see how he did alongside Mainu. And I think if you're looking for other sixes, possibly, there's not loads of players out there. I think when you're looking at some of the players United are linked to, I think Anderson can do multiple jobs in midfield and would be really effective. Um, let's see. Charges won't hurt City this season since the season's kind of over. No, I think what I was thinking like next season, that if they did get a points deduction, like no one's going to think City get relegated because they accumulate loads of points. But um, yeah, I don't think I I don't know. Do you think it's going to happen that quickly? Because I know Pep seems to be like he seems to know what's going on, and he seems to disappear from from clubs quite quickly as things happen. But if they get minus 30 points, they'll still stay up, won't they? They'll still be fine in the league. If they got minus 60 points, then they're relegated. But I don't know. Would they get something like that? That would be it would be very strange. It basically just ruins their domestic season, doesn't it? So it means that you just have to avoid relegation by getting points. And so how about this? City win tonight. They're deducted 40 points. They escape the drop. They're 4 points clear of relegation with one game to go. Story buried by upcoming World Cup. Do you think it'd be that rapid that it would seem, yeah, if they're going to be deducting points, I think they need to do it at the start of the season rather than like effectively, like if they say if they win tonight. No, I think I don't think you can deduct points at this stage of the season because it's so late on. I think you need to do it at the start of the season. Otherwise, I feel like a bit of a cop out, wouldn't it? Because if they would have, if City were winning the league, would they deduct points then and give the league to Arsenal? I don't think so. Um, Kelsey says, "Do you really think Pep would come to United?" I honestly have no idea whatsoever. Alex Ferguson says Pep would love to bring Manchester United back to where we belong. Can you imagine if that I don't know what City fans would have some sort of meltdown with this one. I'd be there for the drama, 100%, but I can't really, I can't see it really happening. I can't see Manchester United trying to do that. That as crazy as it sounds, uh, yeah, I don't know. It might be something that maybe Pep is the guy you get after the guy. So maybe you could look at it and say Michael Carrick's got a year, 2 years, maybe to try and stabilise Manchester United. Maybe Pep is the person you bring in a few years' time, depending on how it goes. If Michael Carrick can win trophies and compete for the league, maybe he's got a safe job. But the expectation is going to go up very high in a couple of years. So I think next season people have a certain expectation for Michael Carrick. I think the year after it's going to really, I think the pressure is going to really ramp up, isn't it? So people's expectations will change quite fast, I'd imagine. It's one of these things, isn't it, that after a season finishing 15th, everybody seems to be on board. Jim says we haven't got the checkbook for Pep. Well, I suppose you could look at it and say that Man United said they could buy some menu. Manchester United could have afforded Mark Gahey. He wasn't particularly expensive, so it might be about not necessarily having the checkbook, Jim. I think you obviously need some money, but Manchester United do have money, so we haven't exactly spent a small amount of money over the last decade. We spent a lot of money, so I would suggest that if Manchester United got Pep and they also got their targets. They also had the best possible targets. I think it does just helps us get those targets over the line. So it might mean that I don't think we'd spend more having Pep as manager, but maybe we could get our top targets a bit more effectively, possibly. I think if you factor in regular Champions League football and having a manager like Pep, it could be a factor. One thing that would be interesting is how would the fan bases react? How would Manchester United fans react if Manchester United got Pep in the future? That again, I suppose it's a little bit like getting Jose Mourinho years after he was at Chelsea. Still a good manager, but I don't think you can do it straight away. You need to have a little gap between that. But I suppose it would be like Pep Guardiola played for no, he played football for Barcelona, so you'd never see him at Barcelona at Real Madrid. But you could, in terms of England, it depends. If you're a manager of Manchester United, could you then leave and then come back and manage City? I'm not sure, but the other way around, possibly. But then it would derail a lot of probably a lot of Manchester City content creators and fans would have to change their views. I think then. John says Arsenal come second, City win the league, deduct points to Arsenal. Say Arsenal title win has a large asterisk. Then no, I don't think you can decide the title on that basis, but you can make sure they get punished next season significantly. I'd have thought. Welcome to the chat, PFC TV. Good to see you. Yeah, I think Pep's going to be gone for a little bit. That's what I think. I think Pep's going to be taking a break at this point in time. and I'm hoping that we just get. I'm just hoping Man United can take advantage that if City do get points deduction, then effectively, if Slot keeps messing up Liverpool, Manchester United with a good transfer window, I think we got. I'm not going to say we can win the league, but I think we could be at least kind of like for half of the season at least. We should be in, we should be in that sort of top four for most of the season, hoping. As say, if City appeal estimates are this will not be decided till February 27. So they may decide not to do that and offer the safety this season is on the table. It might be. Maybe City are going to broker a deal just to get this wrapped up. And maybe that's what we're going to see, which should be, yeah, something good to happen, see happen. And Tabasa says we do not hire rival ex-managers. I'm just trying to think. Usually we've gone down the route of getting managers that are, let's say, experimental for a start. And one of the things I've said is maybe Manchester United should be looking at Premier League proven managers as a thing. Like when we got, so we got Amrin in and we got Eric Ten Hag and we saw Ragnick come in as interim. Those three coaches have probably had the worst win rate at Manchester United, I think, since Alex Ferguson. And if you look at the situation now, I think United should be looking, yeah, if Michael Carrick doesn't work out and you can't get a Luis Enrique, I think you need to look at managers that have managed in the Premier League as a factor as well. If Pep came in, he'd want two new fullbacks. I'd be happy with that, Tony. I'd be happy with like a couple of different fullbacks. I don't think that would be a big problem. Tony says to Matt Busby played for Manchester City. That Ineos wouldn't want Pep because Pep wants to win everything, and that means spending a lot of money. Whereas Ineos only wants Champions League places for money reasons. I think this comment. I think Manchester United, though, if you're looking at it, Manchester United if you want to make a lot of money, then winning trophies makes a lot of money. The question I'd say is like, is it actually cheaper to spend the money and stay in the Champions League every single season? I think it actually is. Like, I think if Manchester United finish like seventh or eighth, and then they have to spend money to get back into the Champions League, I think it ends up costing more in the long run than it does if you can actually stay in the top four places. So if Manchester United can do what Arsenal are doing and say Liverpool and City are doing for the last few years, just stay in the Champions League football, just stay in the top four as a minimum, and then because there's not a lot of difference between the top three or four teams anyway, then you're going to be close to the title race. It makes sense to actually try and win trophies at Manchester United because you're just going to get more money from endorsements and with a new stadium and potential sponsorship with that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to run the club like we're not Chelsea. It's not like the money's there for Man United. They can spend it. I think you just need to spend it a bit more wisely. That's probably the difference here. So, does it affect the Elliot Anderson transfer? If you're Anderson, do you look at Manchester United in a different light based on like you've seen them play, you played against them, you've seen Bruno Fernandes, what he can do, you've seen like you put in a good performance and your team has been, let's be honest, Forest were well beaten on the weekend. 29 shots Manchester United had, and Anderson in midfield as well. Ko Mainu, I thought, did really well against Anderson. And I thought overall, you could say strong performance from Anderson, but Forest were second best for most of that match. And Man United should have scored about like two more goals at least. No, is that a convincing factor? You got the fan base, the send off you're getting from Casemiro as well. Lots of positives there. Uh, Does actually Pep leaving change anything with the club? Because they seem to have got. I think what you're seeing here also is Manchester City. The fact they've announced Maresca and Maresca hadn't gone anywhere else. I think this might have been done in January, and I'm wondering whether Manchester City have also done deals in January, maybe to try and win the league one last year for Pep. Maybe also they're wondering whether they'll get some sort of punishment and maybe it'll be difficult to sign players in the future. So there could be a few things going on here. Welcome, Gregory, to the stream. Um, Jim says you wouldn't want Pep. Now, maybe I should do a maybe I should do a poll in the chat. But at the moment, like Michael Carrick's in charge, nothing's going to change there. But it could be something. Yeah, it could be something. When the 130 so closer to 145 charges comes down on City, it will be a final thing. City are unable to appeal. Premier League and FA made sure of that because the stuff City did against UEFA. So no, maybe this is one way. That the thing is though, the charges are just getting more and more and more. So it's almost like they need to maybe City need to do some sort of agreement with this to get it done because it's getting a bit ridiculous. It does make people question the integrity of the league if this sort of thing happens. I would also say that like the VAR situation as well. If I had power, I'd say like get rid of VAR, keep goal line technology. I think that's been good. You can keep automated offside. That seems to be fairly effective, but maybe you can adjust it slightly so it's not favouring defence as much as it feels like it has been. But you could look at that. Goal line technology is a big improvement. But I think the problem with VAR is effectively you're just replaying decisions that are also contentious. So you're looking at decisions that are 50-50 judgment calls sometimes. And I think sometimes the refereeing in real time, watching the match in real time, then I think it is actually better to just let the referee and forget about this. Because I don't think it's actually made us get more decisions correct. I think it's just delayed games and spoiled the environment a bit for people watching in live matches. So I don't think VAR has really done what it's supposed to do, and I'd be happy to see the back of VAR. But just keep the automated offside. That seems to be effective, and keep the goal line technology. So in terms of this one, like, are we going to be having a greater chance to get Anderson, or is it going to make no difference whatsoever? That's probably the sort of talking point today. So how do people feel? Like if Manchester United are saying, look, we've got Carrick in charge, we're going to put some different coaches in charge. We're potentially going to spend a decent amount of money fixing midfield. You can see last year when Manchester United bought attacking players, each one of those attacking players, Sesko and Bremo Cunha, they've all got 10 goals. I think Manchester United is the only team with three people in their team in double figures. And I think actually maybe Casemiro is there as well. So we've got a few players, and all the players we bought have been a success. They've all got 10 plus goals. They've all got assists as well. The goalkeeper's had a good season. If Manchester United have the similar success rate with midfield, where if in 12 months' time we're having a conversation where we say, okay, we signed either Anderson or whoever it's going to be, like Belieber, Alex Scott, or Matheus Fernandes, who I think is going to be potentially one of the better deals when West Ham get relegated. We could be having a conversation in 12 months' time saying, look at those players we signed, really good deal, great that we invested heavily on midfield. And Anderson could be part of that. That would be my pitch to Anderson that he could be right in the middle of the rebuild and he could be one of the key signings. He could be potentially getting yeah all the plaudits for rebuilding Manchester United. So apparently Anderson posted pictures of himself and Manu after the game. Read into that what you will. So there's going to be a lot of things happening, isn't it? Where when I spoke to Nottingham Forest fans, and one of them joined the stream yesterday in the comments saying that he felt that if something was going to happen, it's either going to happen very quickly when the transfer window, so when the season's over, like very quickly we're going to get some agreements and get this deal wrapped up. This is like for him going to Manchester City or going to Manchester United. This will be wrapped up quite quickly, or it might drag on for most of the summer. Now, I think with this one, Anderson's not going to want to be talking about this during the World Cup, and he's going to want to focus on that tournament, which is fine. Can Manchester United get this deal done quite rapidly? That would be a difficult thing because not only it's like convincing Anderson is one thing, but then it's the valuation that Nottingham Forest have put on Anderson. I think the 125 has already been dismissed as being like that's not going to happen. That I think that price is going to come down. The question is, how much is it going to come down? Is it going to come down significantly that we start looking at Anderson as actually sensible or sense? But I don't know. That's a bit of a shame to hear, Yarli. For me, it's just been disappointing. Jim would rather have Carrick than Pep. So you didn't. No, I think that ship sailed anyway. That they're not going to be getting any change there. I think with Michael Carrick, it's his job and it's up to him to. It feels a little bit like when Eddie Howe got the Newcastle job. Expectations will go up every single season. Carrick's just got to get good results, and I think if you're looking at this situation, then I think it's going to be good for him. And depends on who's this one. So if you're talking about Anderson, Anderson will get a lot of exposure at, at Manchester United for sure. If he wants that, I'm guessing. Yeah, I think that to be honest, actually on the weekend the referees seem to be okay, but for me, VAR is just a bit of a mess. That VAR does not help referees, and if anything, it makes referees reliant on it to some extent. I would say it shows how poor the Premier League is when we're saying we've got three players scoring 10 goals. So I think actually, if you look at the treble winning team in 98, 99, I don't think anyone scored over 15. So I think Dwight York, Andy Cole, probably Solskjaer, Sheringham. I don't think anyone got, I think maybe like 16 or 17 was the highest in the Premier League. So, but also you could say that there's a lot of people scoring goals. I think the thing for Man United is that we got Casemiro probably be getting 9 or 10 goals as well. And we've got Harry Maguire scoring a few goals. We've got Bruno Fernandes scoring a few goals. So I think overall that I think with this one, Manchester United, apart from Van Nistelrooy and apart from maybe the season when I think Marcus Rashford had one season, Cristiano Ronaldo had one season, I don't think that it's going to be. I don't think there's going to be. I don't think Man United need one goal scorer to score a huge amount unless they want to start playing how they used to play under Van Nistelrooy, where Van Nistelrooy was just like, yeah, everything going for one striker. So I think it's going to be. I think the goal scoring's been fine, and I think it's actually, if you look at the way teams play, I think it's good for Manchester United to have multiple goal scorers on a small, like a smaller amount of goals because it makes it more difficult to play against. If you look at Newcastle, they seem to always go for one striker, and no, I think it's going to be, yeah, definitely. It's not a bad thing. I think Manchester United, the amount of goals we scored last year was a bad thing. Like we only scored like just over 40 goals last season. This season we've got about 25 more goals. So I remember actually I did a stream a year ago and I said, based on our goal of the players we signed, we should be looking to score at least 25 more goals, like at least that. And we got a lot better players in those positions. Yeah, exactly. Goals conceded has been a problem. I think that's why Elliot Anderson fits so much because if you get someone like Anderson, he won 60% of his ground duels on the weekend, which is good because we're up there in the league as being the most effective in duels. But if you look at Anderson's work actually winning the ball back, he's the best in the league. So and that's going to be how do you prevent conceding goals? One is going to be we've got a good goalkeeper in. So Lamans has been, I think Lamans might well have he's made the most saves so far this year. He's up there with like one of the best seasons ever for a goalkeeper in actually making saves. But the fact that we're conceding a lot of shots is a bit of a problem. And you could argue that to avoid conceding goals, there's a few things, isn't there? One, you need a better goalkeeper. Defense needs to improve, but also if the midfield can win the ball back a lot more effectively and a lot higher up the pitch, then you're not going to concede as many chances either. So about sometimes it's vulnerability in transition for Man United, and it that has happened a lot this season. And it kind of like got a little bit better towards the end of the season, but it's still, we're still talking about games where we win games 3-2, 4, like 3-2, 2-1. We're not getting loads of clean sheets, but I think the trend has been improving. But that's going to happen with fixing midfield. Like fixing midfield means that whoever starts the match isn't obligated to play 90 minutes. You can actually do some rotations as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be. I think fixing midfield helps, but it helps all of your team, doesn't it? Yeah, I didn't watch that game actually. Burnley should have had a penalty. Yeah, I don't know. I get the feeling with this one that Arsenal score from a corner because apparently they scored the most goals from corners. But um, so Pep leaving is hardly going to improve Premier League quality. I don't know. I think a lot of like teams like Arteta's a student of Pep, isn't he? And I think with Arsenal they just found a way to get over the line. But I think the second half of Arsenal season compared to the first half of Arsenal season suggests that things are changing, and it seems that yeah. Um, so the elite clubs voted against VAR, but the final decision was made. I was just in like in terms of Norwegian football, but no, for me, like when people are talking about VAR, it's unless you're going to have different people or people that are better trained making the decisions watching VAR, what's the point in having it? Because it feels a bit like at the moment I don't see a difference between a referee judging a game in real time and someone's slowing down the replay because they're coming to the same sort of decisions. Say 10 years ago, a referee would maybe make a couple of contentious decisions in a match, but over the course of the season, they kind of even themselves out a little bit. And I think with VAR, we're seeing the same sort of thing. That we're seeing Man United had some decisions go against us, we've had some go for us, and it's annoying, but it isn't different to it was 10 years ago. We're still having like good and bad decisions made. And all we're seeing now is that for me, the thing that's affecting it is the delay in matches where all matches now take 90 plus 10 minutes. So every match is like 10 minutes longer. And it feels like people are watching in the stadium, just watching a screen, waiting to. Sometimes actually, someone told me that they went to the game Manchester United versus Leeds. They didn't even know why there was a red card in that match. That I think the referee tried to announce it, but they couldn't hear. So it's ridiculous, isn't it? Big up to you, Jarvis, though. Good to see you in the chat. So entertainment. No, I think I'll say this: like, there's been a few games this season, and I would say Manchester United, like against Nottingham Forest. I thought that was an entertaining game. The game against Arsenal was an entertaining game. I think football changes, and football became very robotic, very controlled, maybe overly tactical for a bit. But you do see things changing, and I think football does evolve. I wonder what even Pep Guardiola changed what he was doing this season, changed his formation a few times, and maybe it's about now, maybe with Manchester United, maybe we can actually try and like play the sort of football that was successful in the past. But you just need to get. It's not for me. It's not necessarily about who's got the best tactics. A lot of the time, it is about who's got the best team. Like if Man United won most of the league titles in the '90s, then it wasn't because we were playing 4-4-2, because everybody was playing the same way. And I think if Manchester United now start playing, say, 4-2-3-1, or if they move to 4-3-3, it's still going to depend on like, do you get the best players into your team? Do you get an Anderson? Do you get a Dumonde? Do you get the players that are going to be? Yeah, exactly. 4-4 against Bournemouth, and Lamon's actually played pretty well in that match to keep the score down. So, are you not entertained by that? That was the United have scored a lot of goals and conceded a lot of goals, but no, I think United do need to get some more control. So definitely a bit more control in matches. And Elliot Anderson is going to be one of those guys that I think fits most teams. That what can Anderson do? So we saw in the weekend people that were talking about Anderson and saying, you know, what does he bring to the team? And I think we saw that on the weekend that defensively, if you watch matches live, you watch much of Anderson, his defensive work is usually important to, it's usually very important to Nottingham Forest. This was one of the first times Man United actually played through Forest quite a lot of the game, and we saw, some very good passing from a few players in our team, and we cut them open a lot of times. If we'd have brought on someone like if we'd brought in a clinical striker instead of Xerxes, I think we're talking about like a 5-2 win. No one even cares about the handball decision then, do they? So if we score our chances, that game's going to be completely gone, and it would be a different conversation, wouldn't it? We'd be sat here thinking, "Wow, Man United have blitzed Forest." I think it's the fact that Anderson put in probably a man of the match performance that kept Forest in the game. But sometimes you have that. Like I mean, Man United played against teams in the past where someone has an exceptional performance, and you just got to be. The positive thing was Man United kept creating chances throughout the whole match. The fact that we don't have the depth on the bench to like take off Cunha, take off um, Casemiro, and bring on players that are as good, and we have no backup striker. That's kind of what has hurt us a little bit this season. That we have had to play, and when we're in the striker position for most of the matches, where I think Benjamin Sesko probably gets a couple of goals in that match based on chances alone. So, no, I do agree that there's definitely some people concerned about football, but I think in terms of how Man United are playing, I think the last few months we've gone from maybe not creating many chances. There are some games, and you have to look at the Chelsea game and say we didn't create many chances in that game, but at least we took that chance, I suppose, and we won that game. But sometimes that happens. Um, yeah, do you know what, Neil? When we were doing like Red Devil United 5 years ago on YouTube, we were talking about VAR. I'm trying to think how long it's been in the game, and at the time I said I was happy to see VAR introduced if it means we don't have these arguments after every single match. And then I'm look at it and think, what is going on? Like it feels like the same sort of situation. Do I think Barada and Wilcox knew Pep was leaving all along? We've never stopped chasing Elliot Anderson, and maybe that's why the rumours around him haven't gone away. Um, I think there's definitely like whether they, when you look at Man United, and one of the things that used to be embarrassing was this incessant chase of like a player, like a Frankie de Jong type thing. And Manchester United have said that. Do you remember the Gyökeres story last year? And all the stories for Gyökeres came out from Ebola, the Portuguese newspaper, which wasn't particularly. It's a bit like it's a bit like a tabloid paper in the UK. So it wasn't the most reliable. It was just kind of like let's just put some stories out every day. And Manchester United didn't ever say Gyökeres is our top target. They never said that, and they were kind of quite cautious of what they say. But Manchester United have been pretty blatant, haven't they? Like continually chasing Anderson. Like if Man United didn't get Anderson, I know people still think he's going to go to City, but it seems like Manchester United are talking about him all the time, saying that he's our priority, he's the one we're going to go for. There's like stories that people don't necessarily believe, saying that Manchester United, like say for example, I've got a story here that someone put out, I think yesterday or the day before, and it's this is the sort of stories that we're seeing. Like Manchester United have talks of Anderson, and like there's probably like a source on this every single day that'll say Manchester United speak to Anderson, Manchester United speak to Forest, United interested, United still pushing hard, United not giving up, all these different angles. And so I don't know with Barada and Wilcox, would they know that? I think one of the things that seems to be apparent is Manchester United seem to look at. Yeah, exactly. Ebola is like the sun in the UK. If you know what that is, if you're in the UK, you'll know for sure. But it just basically puts out the same sort of thing. But Alex Ferguson say Anderson was good. That he's not Zidane. Like Zidane was an elite world class player, but Anderson is only what 23. He's played what 2 seasons. So I think with Anderson, you look at what he's doing now. It's a bit like looking at Boadi at Lille. You look at what people do as a young player and think if they improve and improve every year. If we got two midfielders in our team that are 23 and 21, it feels a bit crazy, doesn't it? Anderson plus Mainu, Aiden Heaven, Yoro, you suddenly start building the framework of a team for the future that has also got some players that are good at the moment. So I do think it would be a big signing as well because it would represent Man United actually um, getting him over the line. But the question though is like a good one from Jarvis saying that do you think Man United knew this was going to happen? I think there must be some evidence of this because if you think about Maresca when he left, well, when did he leave Chelsea? Was it like January time? It feels like a while ago now. And as soon as Maresca came out and left Chelsea, wasn't there like a meeting or wasn't there something linking him to Manchester City? And Maresca was like linked to Man City almost immediately as he left Chelsea. And I can't remember what the sources were because it's going a while ago. But yeah, a lot of people thought he would be the natural successor. And if you're looking at the situation now, that maybe that was right. I can't remember if Maresca got linked to other clubs. I think Maresca probably was linked to clubs that maybe Spurs because they're a high profile team. They lost their manager, and he might have been linked to other clubs. But it does seem to be that yeah. So exactly. I mean, Brada would have strong links to Manchester City, and they might know what's going on. But also, I think there's definitely, if you look at City, this is 2 seasons without winning the Premier League, despite probably spending the most money. And if you think about the window, when you do a window in January and you bring in Semenyo and you bring in Mark Gahey, that for me is saying that you want to get over the line this year. This is exactly like Manchester United buying Dwight York and buying Jaap Stam. You buy those two players to win the league. You don't buy those players to see how they develop. I think Man City did a January transfer window with right, let's buy the league one more time, and then we can then Pep can leave, and we can leave on a high. So I think Pep knew he was leaving at least in January, and the idea was going to be go out on a high. So I don't think we're going to see obviously we're not going to see what happened with Alex Ferguson, where I think Alex Ferguson would have retired 2 years earlier, if Man City hadn't have had that very suspicious win against it was at QPR. But I think what we're seeing is that they kind of then they bought we bought Van Persie to win the Premier League effectively, didn't we? We bought the informed striker, and that was the difference. And I think Manchester City thought they were going to do that. I think they thought, let's get these two players. This will be enough to get over the line. And for some reason, it hasn't worked out. Like City have still been a bit poor in some games, and I think it's like the Everton game that they were really disappointing. But they seem to have not fixed out their defensive frailties, Man City, and yeah, they conceded more goals than and they never really got going this season. And Arsenal, boring football, I think, from Arsenal, but they kind of grind over the line, didn't they? And I think the Pep pull possibly, but I think they I think you're still going to be getting some, but maybe people thought like we did. Maybe they thought it was going to be like the end of the line. If you're going to join a club for 5 years, because that's going to be what the sort of time frame. Anderson will go to a club. He'll probably sign like a 5 year contract, a bit like Mbeumo, a bit like Cunha. So Pep Guardiola was never going to be there for the whole 5 years anyway. No one knows if Carrick's going to be there for how long he's going to be there. But you have to look at it and say that United, in terms of trajectory, we're definitely improving, and the financial situation at our club is definitely improving. The new financial rules, are they going to hurt City a bit because you can only spend what 70% of your turnover on salaries in the Premier, let's say in the if you're in European competition, and we know that City, all these charges suggest that things don't go exactly through the official book. So I think if City actually get audited and have to meet the rules, their turnover isn't as much, I don't think, as has been reported, and they might struggle a little bit. Yeah, no, I think. Do you remember when just to point at this? Do you remember when Chelsea got a transfer ban? And when Chelsea got a transfer ban about, it must be about 8, 10 years ago now, when Chelsea got a transfer ban, they signed loads of players, like loads of players before they got banned. And then when they got banned, it didn't really matter because they bought about 10 new players, it felt like. So it could be that they're looking at this, like Man City have got players in because the circumstances they're in. Like Semenyo's going to go to Man City, they give him more money. We're going to see Mark Gay, he goes to City because he gets a 300k a week contract. And they think they're going to win the title, and it hasn't worked out that way. And maybe for City, a few of the signings haven't quite worked out the way they wanted to. Marmoush, I'm not sure. Rangers, I'm not sure. Turkey's a good signing, but one of the things as well is like looking at Man City as a club. Can you imagine? Like, so I said this actually last night. I think to I might have just posted it on Twitter or something. But the difference is going to be Pep Guardiola leaves Manchester City. Okay, that's one thing. What about Haaland? Like, if you take Haaland out of Man City, because you have like a circumstance where the only reason that Zlatan came to Manchester United was his relationship with Jose Mourinho, and he said he would have joined years earlier if Mourinho was manager. With Pep leaving, like, is Haaland going to be now looking for the next move? Like, where's Haaland going to go? Like, that's going to be probably he's probably going to be the one of the most important signings I think regarding if he leaves City, then you take away pretty much most of City's goal threat this season. He's been the top goal scorer, I think, since he joined by a distance. So for me, Pep leaving is one thing. If Haaland then goes, that I know he signed a big contract. I know he's under contract for a lot, but you know, we have to see what happens with that one. That for me would be a bit of a game changer as well. I mean, I don't know where he's going to go, to be honest. Mark said that they're more excited for Tchouaméni. Tchouaméni's an elite player as well. Haaland going to end up in Real Madrid. So, thing is though, Haaland and Mbappe are the same, aren't they? That I don't think they can swap clubs. So I don't think Mbappe wants to go to Manchester. But can anyone afford Haaland? That apparently, I think City were going to be putting Haaland on 800k a week or something. So it's going to be astronomical money. But the question is going to be, no, I don't think they can afford to sell him, can they? So if they lose him, then they're not going to be the force they were. But I don't know, can any club actually afford Haaland that sort of money? that you can make an argument to say that Man United, if there's not a big transfer fee, then Manchester United's wage bill could take Haaland. Like our wage bill's very low, but it would be a ridiculous salary you probably have to give him. So I don't know. I mean, if Man United got Haaland, then that probably changes things quite a lot. I think suddenly we are. If you put Haaland in front of Bruno Fernandes, then I would say that changes things significantly because he's capable of scoring a goal a game, and that would be phenomenal. And Bruno Fernandes is more than capable of creating a couple of chances a game, but I don't see that ever happening. I just think that it's at some point Haaland might want to leave, but I don't know where he'd go because, like you said, it's so expensive. Where would he go? You'd feel like Real Madrid would be the natural move, but unless Real Madrid would have to offload a few people, and they'd have to do something market value. Yeah, ridiculous, isn't it? So no, he's not going to go. So you don't rate Haaland. You ask him what can he do. It's a bit like Van Nistelrooy. That's what he does, isn't it? Apart from score goals, what does Van Nistelrooy do? He scores goals. That's what he does. And he's a bit more of an old school striker where he's not going to get involved in link up play. He just scores goals. Like Van Nistelrooy doesn't need to leave the penalty area. Haaland actually is, yeah, is okay. I think he's got a decent amount of assists, but no, you don't sign Haaland for his link up play, do you? You sign him to finish chances. But let's go back to the Anderson situation. Um, does this make it more or less likely, do people think, that um, yeah, this was going to be my point actually, Tony, when I started the stream. I think the thing that's interesting to me is that I think Pep Guardiola, he left Barcelona before a lot of things happened. And yeah, 500k a week is nothing though, is it? Let's be honest. 500k a week is Casemiro plus Sancho, and we still got change. So I don't think the salary is a thing. Manchester United's wage bill has come down loads. Hmm. Now, my question was going to be, say, United would never buy from City. No, when Holland gets sold, he does not go to a Premier League club at all. So that does not happen. But yeah, it's going to be like when Manchester United sell players, like we sold Lukaku. You sell some players outside the league. Harry Kane got sold to Bayern Munich, for example. You don't sell top players in your league. Also, we're seeing this in Germany. Top German clubs will not sell players to Bayern Munich. They just try and get them out of the league if possible. So, um, thoughts on Anderson? What I might do is, yeah, and I saw that. The thing is, I don't want to see Mbappe in the Premier League at City. That would be really difficult, really difficult. They're saying that Enzo Maresca is good at getting teams promoted from the Championship, says Kawin. Yeah, let's hope. I'm going to put a poll in the chat, okay, because this is going to be to test people's, I don't know, confidence, should put it that way. So I'll put a poll. When I did a poll yesterday, actually, and the question was, would you pay 125 million pounds for Elliot Anderson? And admittedly, look, I think that's too much money. But 16% of people did say they would pay that. Um, so this is one on Anderson. When I've spoken to Forest fans, actually they've also said they don't want Anderson to go, so they don't want to cash in either. They want to see Anderson stay at Forest, but I think that's very unlikely. So and I don't see. For me, this is going to be Manchester City versus Manchester United for Anderson. I don't see any. I can't see Nottingham Forest not cashing in. Put it that way. So I'll put Forest. I'll put other there just for sake. So there's three options. I think either Manchester United convince Anderson to join, or Manchester City do that as well. The only chance he stays at Forest is if Nottingham Forest really, really don't compromise on an astronomical fee. I get the feeling that if you remember Alanga going for 60 million, which I thought was wow, that's a large amount of money. And I think Wissa actually moving from Brentford for similar money was also, whoa, what's going on here? So I think there has been a precedent recently where some transfers can somewhat spiral out of control, but I'm not going to say Anderson should be 125. But I think he could be one of the most expensive signings Man United. He could possibly be our most expensive signing. But I put a poll in the chat though for you to vote and have your say regarding how much. What do you think? Like, do you think Anderson is going to go to Manchester United? It feels like the PR campaign we're doing is like kind of kind of accelerating a little bit. Um, so that's why players like you love like Tevez, Aguero, say very comfortable with the ball. Yeah, I think Zlatan was very good. Sesko is good. I think Van Nistelrooy people like when they talk about goal scorers. I think with Van Nistelrooy, I don't think you see many people that have a first touch as good as Van Nistelrooy in setting up your second touch, which is usually a strike on goal. So by the way, we're going to save something like 68 million in wages this year on players leaving. That's phenomenal, isn't it? If you consider that though, it is going to be like say 52 weeks in the year. It is like over 1.2 or 3 million per week, isn't it? So there is a lot of money. So I think United can afford to spend quite big. I don't think we're going to be Elliot Anderson. I don't think is going to be like a phenomenally expensive contract either. I think the rumors regarding City were about 200k a week, but if you consider that Gallagher at Spurs is on 200k a week reportedly, then I think Man United with someone like Anderson, it could edge up slightly, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be crazy. I think that more than likely they're going to be looking to try and manage the transfer fee somewhat. So it'll be down to Anderson. I think Nottingham Forest 100% will be looking to sell. They're just trying to push the price up. I think that Anderson will go, and he might go. He might go close to 100, I think, or about 100. I can't really see him necessarily going for over 100. The thing that's interesting about this one is that when you consider the overall price, I think Man United would be happy to go slightly over 100 if that 100 was in add-ons because if you think about it, Mbeumo was 71 when you include the add-ons, and I think they probably most have been paid now because I remember reading after the Mbeumo deal that I think some of the add-ons were dependent on getting Champions League football, and at the time, at the time I said like if Man United get Champions League football, no one's gonna care. But if Mbeumo costs like a few more million pounds, and that's true, I think. So we're going to see the same sort of thing with Anderson. I think there might be it might be like you look at I don't know 80 million or 90 million plus add-ons, and the total amount might end up costing a bit more than 100. But it would make sense. Like it would mean that Man United can keep the price down overall a little bit to start with. But I mean, their owner is a little bit crazy, put it that way, and say the Forest owner has said 125. I did read something yesterday that said 125. The price is likely to come down from that. Of course, it is. Like it's not going to be 125. So he's on. I believe he's on about 100. Yeah, I believe he's on about 100-ish k, maybe slightly more. But if you remember, like I think Cunha was on. I think Cunha was on about 100 plus this one. Is he worth 100 million? Then the difficulty with this is going to be, I think Manchester United need to look at this long term. So is he worth 100 million? Arsenal are going to win the Premier League. Is Declan Rice worth 110? So I think when you look at that and go, and was Mbeumo worth like 70 million pounds? Was Benjamin Sesko worth like 70 million pounds? So I think when you look at it, if Alanga's worth 60, then he's worth 100. Like if Alanga's worth 60, Gittins was worth 60, I would rather have Elliot Anderson in my team than Alanga plus Garnacho in my squad. Say 100 million pounds gets you either Garnacho plus Gittins and or Garnacho plus Alanga, or you have Elliot Anderson. I think he's just a lot better than those players. So it feels crazy, and the money does feel too much. But if you look at what he did this season, then he wins the ball back more than anybody. He's actually quite good on the attacking side of it. Like really nice cross he put in for their first goal. Uh, he's a good player. Like the thing is, Mark, that unfortunately, if you go cheaper, then there's not loads of options. I think he's if you consider that, say, Cake says Anderson would be class for United, get him in. I would say that the only person I see that's going to be if Man United didn't get Anderson, I would be right. If too many's available, we get too many. That for me, they're the two standout targets. I think a lot of people like Tonali as well. I don't think Tonali. I think with Tonali, okay, you probably have to look at Tonali's numbers and say, and then if you take Tonali out of Newcastle, would he be would he be better? And I think with like the price feels a bit like monopoly money because it's so astronomical that the fact that players that look a bit average in a lot of teams cost 50 to 60 million. It's yeah, it's I think you have to look at the ratio as well. And so don't forget we were prepared to spend 75 on Belieber last summer. We had the money to buy some menu for what 65 million in January. The money's there. So the money is there. And for me, if you spend say Alanga's worth 60 a year. So I think okay, I don't think I'm not going to say he's worse than Almajalo, but I don't think he's worth 60 million. Like I don't think Almajalo is worth 60 million either. So I think if you're looking at this one, then the key could be like if Man United signed players that cost less, and we signed Fred, we signed Agate, that I think you have to look at this one. So I'm not saying Elliot Anderson is a better football player than too many at all. I'm not saying he's better than that one. I'm saying that he's in terms of availability, if he's available, he's a top quality player. Too many is probably going to be. Yeah, you'd probably argue that too many is probably be a better football player than Anderson at the moment, but he's a couple of years older, more experienced, but also he's playing in a different team. So sometimes it's difficult to put like, too many stats are outrageous, and he's a phenomenal player. But and I think Elliot Anderson can get to that level. They're going to be different though. That what things that like too many never progresses the ball. Too many does make yeah incredible amount of wins all his duels pretty much. He's great in the air. So there's a lot of strengths too many's got, and Anderson's got a lot of strengths. They're both probably the two best players we've been linked to, I think, this summer transfer window. And if you got one of them, yeah, Gittins and Alanga 60 million. That's what I mean. Like Wissa 58 or something like that. So I do agree that players aren't worth the money but most of the players are not worth the money they go for. That's the thing. The only player that was exceptional value for money this summer or last summer was Lamans, the goalkeeper. So and yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing our squad's thin. The question with this one is that if Man United our squad is thin, if you buy somebody like if you buy someone like an Elliot Anderson, then there's actually quite a few good options that you can go. You can get say Alex Scott, you maybe get Matheus Fernandez for not too much money. I think João Gomez still hasn't actually gone either. So you've got a few options. You've got Hayden Hackney as well. You've got that guy at Southampton whose name I forget. But you've got a few options around that sort of price point. And if you look at even like Edison at Atalanta is quite similar to Anderson in terms of what he does, but he's obviously going to be not as good. But he would be cheaper and could be a backup. So you could look at squad depth as where you save your money. But I think if you're going to go for your top targets, you have to try and get the best players possible. Don't forget, like 100 million is insane money, but Manchester United will get over 100 million from just competing in the Premier League. And our turnover at the moment, like say, during a season when Man United were not at their best, their turnover is about 600 and was it 665 million we had as a turnover. I'd be amazed if in a year's time it's not going to be over 700 million. So Man United's turnover from getting back in the Champions League is going to be phenomenal. The prize money alone, even if you lose all 8 games, is still like about 90 million pounds. So all this money is ridiculous, isn't it? But the money's just becoming crazy. So yeah, if you can include, do you remember when Man United bought Schneiderlin? And he must have been about what 25 million, and we bought like maybe Fellaini, and these players that were costing 25, 30 million are probably now costing like 50 million. So that's the crazy thing. So £100 million signing now is probably going to be not much different to a Rio Ferdinand back in the day. Like, and you get Rio Ferdinand because there doesn't seem to be any options that are going to be as good, and it might be somewhat comparable. But yeah, unfortunately with this one, it's why every player looks like it's some phenomenal price, but it doesn't mean the players are getting better. So for me, it doesn't matter how much Anderson costs. It's probably a question about how much would you end up paying for someone that's not as good. Like if you think Anderson cost 100 million and that's not very good, would you be happy if Man United spend 70, 75 million pounds on a player you think actually this player's not as good? And or if you spent 60 million pounds on a player that doesn't feel as good either, it's you know it's a bit of a weird situation, but no, I think you can definitely get two players for the same sort of money as Anderson, but then that means you spend maybe 200 million and get three people in. So yeah, Yali, you must have been someone that voted in that poll yesterday because I said some people said they spend 125 million. You said you spend 140. That's the highest price I've ever seen. Um, no, even like it's like Isak. How much did Isak cost? I think there is a vulnerability if you buy uh, one player for very big money, but this is like wait like 140 is not going to happen. 125 will not happen. It feels a little bit like it feels a little bit like 100 plus add-ons or 90 plus add-ons is going to be roughly where the money is going to be. And so, Swedish Rumble usually does some quite useful information. So in terms of like transfers, the amount of money we spent on Fred, which how long ago was Fred? Was that like 6 years ago, something? So the amount of money we spent on Fred was 50 million. It's now about 70 million. So it's probably about looking at players that when we bought Fred, what do you get for like, say, I don't know, 60 million at that time? Because that's probably going to be close to like a 90 million pound signing now. Yeah, I'm not saying Isak's that good. I think Isak was decent, and I think Newcastle play in a way which makes the strikers look a bit more effective than they did with Isak. But no, no, I think there's a lot of good options as well. And at United we don't need to spend 125 million pounds on Anderson because City are not going to spend 125 million pounds on Anderson. No one's going to be doing that one. Andy, welcome to chat. Andy said Anderson still leaves holes because he's attacking so too many mops up behind naturally. I think you'd have to have a look at the relationship between the players on the pitch and say if Anderson's going forward, then when he's going forward, obviously someone needs to come in and it's a bit like when Roy Keane and Scholes. Once you got if you've got two people with a good understanding, then when one's going forward, naturally someone's got to cover. Like Anderson, like I said, Anderson can do the defensive work. He can cover defense, but he can go forward. But it depends, doesn't it? When you're on, the good thing is like with Anderson and potentially whoever Anderson's playing with, that he has got the mobility to also get back as well. So the idea is going to be that if Anderson's attacking, then clearly someone has to be covering behind that one. And how likely is it that Pep will leave? Says Cake. He's gone. Like he's gone, isn't he? Like Pep has gone. Like for Cake. Last night there was. Let me just quickly show you on the screen about the try and find the story now with Pep. Pep and Maresca do look a bit similar. So when you're scanning through stories, they look a bit too similar. It's like clearly Man City have got an idea in mind about what their manager should look like. So David Ornstein announced last night. So we got tier one on this, saying Pep Guardiola decision to leave City at the end of the season. Um, and so I don't know what the exact reason is, but let's hope it's because the charges are coming and City are going to be losing some of their money. And then pretty much straight away we got here we go from Fabrizio. So in terms of it, is it likely he's gone, Cake? Like he has gone. So it's not that it's is it likely, it's that it's game over for Pep at City. So no, this was announced. I think it was like latish last night. So we're doing a stream on the channel where we're looking at some of the stories. Like Jules was doing a stream there, but no, this broke quite late last night. So he's gone. Like Pep has gone. So I think a lot of people are thinking that. I think a lot of people are thinking that does this change things? That's why that's why Pep Guardiola. I wouldn't normally put Pep Guardiola on a thumbnail on the Man United channel, but it affects things, doesn't it? It does change what happens, and it does make you wonder that we're having a conversation today, Cake, where a lot of people are pointing out that Man City will have known this for a while. Maybe Barada has known this as well. Maybe there's a reason why we won't give up on Anderson because City, as good as they've been, and they can bring in Maresca. Maresca can do a good job, but it's not going to be quite the same, is it? It is an unknown. I'm not going to say it's like a David Moyes because when Manchester United lost Alex Ferguson, we had an aging squad and most of the defence retired pretty much straight away. So we had a lot more problems. I think Man City they've signed a couple of goalkeepers. They signed Mark Gahey, Semenyo, Rangers, and like Cherky. They've still got Haaland. So they've got a lot of the pieces there. And I think they're trying to keep players together. So maybe that's why they're trying to keep Rodri. And it might be that they're looking to try and get Anderson in. Maybe they thought they could get Anderson in before Pep announced he was going. Maybe that's what they thought they could do. So it might be that I think City are rumoured to have offered some sort of contract to Anderson. Apparently, they were leading the race, so it might be that might be one of the reasons why. So I think City were trying to get deals done rapidly because he's going. So Fergie left us in pretty bad shape, but I think that was on the club. Like there was no succession plan in terms of like the team, was there? There was a plan to give a different manager in charge, but Man United, like, I think a lot of people like did Rio Ferdinand and Vidic and Neville, they all left pretty quickly. So I think that was on yeah, that was on individual players, but that was on I think Alex Ferguson clearly he didn't plan for the future with the next level of signings, did he? So he was always going to go. It's a shame though, because it kind of ruined our club. And so, will Anderson be under extra pressure to justify his 100 million price and also pressure of scoring goals? I don't think I don't think a player comes into midfield of Manchester United with a pressure of scoring goals. That I think that's something that is a bonus. Like Casemiro scoring goals is a bonus, and I think it's nice. I mean Anderson, he did score a couple of games ago, but I think with Anderson, I'd be actually looking at Anderson thinking if Anderson came into Man United's team next season, and depending on how far forward he plays in games, I think he's a player that's going to be more likely to create goals going forward than he is to score goals at this point in time. But I don't think he'd be under pressure. I think that for me, I don't know what other people think, but for me, individual goal scoring is not important. I don't really care who scores the goals. And if Cunha scores 10, if Mbeumo scores 10, Sesko scores 10, and Anderson gets 3, it doesn't matter. Like if Man United score as many goals as the top teams in the league. And we saw this season. We scored 25 more goals than we did last season, I think, so far. And it might be close to 30. And I don't think we haven't got a situation where any striker's on 30 goals, and it doesn't matter. We don't need to get someone that's scoring 30 goals. Then welcome, DJ. Yeah, Fergie won the league in his last season, so you could argue the team was decent, but I think with the some players did retire quite quickly after. That was probably the issue. What did he say? What did Roy Keane say in his statement against Bruno Yali, just out of interest? That there seems to be a few ex-players that have got a lot of negative stuff to say about Man United, which is a bit of a shame, but it happens. But if anyone's got any final questions, if you're able to share the stream when we're live, that always helps loads. I'm going to try and keep these streams a bit shorter because we're going to do like a 1 p.m. stream, hopefully. Okay, I'll have to check that out. But if you've got any suggestions for 1 p.m. stream, which will be like another news stream, hopefully something will happen. But if you got like a final question to get in now, I'll go through the final comments. Say City knew it was coming. Part of the reason he left Chelsea. Yeah, I think Man United. I think Manchester United maybe Omar Barada knew this was going to happen, so there could be a reason why things are happening now, which it could be good from a Man United perspective that maybe we can take advantage of this. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens. Yeah, just for people who just joined, it's a done deal. Like Pep Guardiola is leaving City, so it's the Pep era of Boring football is over, so that's always a positive. And it's up to Michael Carrick now. Michael Carrick versus Arteta possibly and Slot. To be honest, having Arteta, Maresca, and Slot as the main managers at rival clubs feels a lot better than having Mourinho at Chelsea, um, Pep at Man City, and actually, I suppose, Klopp at Liverpool. I was thinking with Arteta, I don't think Arsenal get over the line next season. I think they might drop off a little bit. Cheers, Tony. If I strike Ferguson, we've spoken about the owners. I don't know. I don't know what the circumstances are. That sometimes with when you're in a big company, you don't know what you're allowed to say. So it might be that there's like things he's not allowed to say. Like so, if you're under contracts with that, then I think with like someone like Eric Cantona, once you leave the club, you can say what you like, can't you? But he might have had legal problems if he said certain things. So I don't know. It's difficult to comment on that one. Yeah, maybe we can bring back the good old days. You know how the football feels a bit like 90s feel, where there's lots of turnovers, it feels like there's more goals in games recently. It feels like there's a bit more attacking impetus. There's definitely less playing out from the back in Manchester United these days. Maybe we can bring back the feel of 90s football with like City going back to the Championship would be an added bonus. I don't think that's going to happen, but who knows? Like you never know what's going to happen in football. Things can change as well. Yeah, Pep's yeah. You can be boring and effective at the same time. I think Pep's football for me was largely boring, but he was effective, and it did mean that people go to clubs because they think they're going to win things as well. He's not coming back. I think Trabzonspor want to keep him. Like it might be another loan deal for him, possibly. Let's hope the league gets back to high tempo attacking football. Then I hope so. I hope so. I hope this obsession with possession ends and people just we seem like the set piece nonsense. Hopefully, the stuff that Arsenal have been doing this season does stop happening as well because yeah, that's been probably the biggest annoyance this season that some of the football's been I think from teams not as good as it has been in recent years. But guys, thank you for watching. If you are new, please subscribe as always and hit the notification bell. If you're able to share it with people you know that enjoy football content as well, that'd be appreciated. But we will see you guys hopefully 1 p.m. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your day and we'll catch